just making your bed in the morning. I do a lot of traveling and spend a lot of time in hotel rooms and whatnot, and it's something that I do that I really find sets my day. So in terms of a daily routine and a bit of a challenge for everyone, it's something that I do, and I make my bed every day. I can do it. I start off, and the theory of what that Admiral was talking to there was about he found it really surprising when he's going through his training that something so simple was taken so seriously. And making your bed is something that I try and do every day as a bit of a daily routine. It sets me up for the day, and I really enjoy it. So that's what I want to do. The second thing I'd like you guys to do is just think of something. I'm going to show you a picture on the next slide, and just think of the first thing that pops into your head. So I'll show you this. Okay, the first thing that pops into your head. If it's one of these things, I've done this a few times, and these are some of the responses that I've got from people who have actually looked at that figure and interpreted it a different way. It's quite interesting how we can all look at something and interpret it totally differently, and we all look at something and get something out of it that's could be really different and really weird to someone else, but actually makes a lot of sense to us. The most interesting one that I've found out of that is the brother, and I didn't really realise until I went back and I looked at it that if you look down on the left here, there's like a little tree, a little small one, and the massive big tree. And the girl that actually told me about that interpretation, she saw that as her older brother, and she was the little tree. So it's quite interesting in terms of interpretation and what we look at and how much we take out of it. And I suppose for me, for you guys tonight, you're going to hopefully you're going to get a couple of things out of this. And some people are going to interpret things and grab at it. Others are going to think, oh, it's a bit of a waste of time or whatnot. But take out of it what you can. And I suppose I'm really looking forward to trying to pass on a bit of knowledge and a bit of experience from what I've been through. So me, who am I? My name's Nathan Gray. If you didn't read the little bio or whatnot, my background is I'm a mate of Connor's, and Connor's wife and my wife are good friends. And I basically had a long rugby playing career as a professional rugby player, and then transitioned out of that into coaching professionally. So I've kind of had a bit of an interesting career around. When I was actually playing, I hated coaches, and I didn't want to coach at all. I didn't have any inspiration or desire or at all. And then I went to Japan and played and trained and coached and started coaching as part of my deal over there. And at the time I was, whatever, I'll do a bit of coaching, and had really no drive to do it. But I actually fell in love with passing on information to people and then seeing them respond and actually grow and get better and improve. And that was something that I really found intoxicating. And I pursue it as a full-time career now, and find myself very lucky to actually really love what I do and get up every morning and really motivated to do it. So that's who I am. I'm also a father of 4 kids. You might see a couple of them walking in the background, so I apologise for that. And a husband as well. So that's sort of me in a nutshell. And from today, hopefully you're going to get 3 things out of it. The first thing, hopefully I'm going to challenge you all that you've already got is the daily routine around your making your bed. Some of you might do it already, or some of you might not, but it's something that I want to give to you. And the second thing is about a couple of things around staying in the fight, around your motivation and actually pushing yourself when sometimes you might want to throw up a quick card. And the last thing is just looking for motivation in different little places, and sharing a few things that I've got some motivation out of myself, but also hopefully show you guys a few things that you can take on board. Something that I've really, really enjoyed was Jerome and Chris's presentations the last couple of weeks. Certainly got a lot out of those, and it's been really interesting seeing some of the people and hearing what they're saying and whatnot. And I suppose it jumps to me around what I've done and what I can get out of it. And I've been a professional football player and now I'm a professional coach. So, and I'm coaching guys who actually get paid to train, and they need motivation and they need drive. So the fact that you guys are actually paying for your own stuff, doing your own thing, getting out there, putting yourself out there, that's actually pretty bloody motivational to me, to be honest. It's I find people like yourselves who make the effort and have made that decision to get out there and do something for a number of different reasons as quite inspirational. So at the very start, I suppose, thank you all for inspiring me a little bit as well. Something I want to start with that I did when I was a player that I found really interesting was I used to have on the back of my hat when I train as a photo of it there. Can everyone see that? Does that make thumbs up if you can see that? Awesome. So it's a little I can, I am, I will. And it's something that I got from a friend when I was at school, and he was a baseball player, and he actually ended up going over and playing in the States. And he mentioned this, and it was something that really stuck well with me. And my very first training session when I was selected to play in the national team in the Wallabies, I wrote it on the bottom of my hat, and I looked at that and had it there as something that really drove me in terms of I can do anything I put my mind to. I'm actually doing it at the moment, which I should feel motivated about, and I'm going to continue to do it. I will continue to do it. And I've still got the hat to this day. It's in there. So it's something that I've held for a long period of time that I found very, very motivational, and something that, just reminded me about what my process was and what I was doing. I suppose I'll move on to the first thing for me is about staying in the fight. And in terms of this I quit card that this guy's holding, I know from training and doing a couple of Code 5 sessions, I've wanted to pull this thing out very, very regularly. It's that card that you want to pull out when your ass is hanging out, when you're doing the 4,000th rep that you didn't think you could do, and you just want to pull it out and go, you know what, Connor, I'm done, champ. See you later. But you got to put that card away. You know that card's in your pocket, and you don't want to use that thing. You want to have it in there. Knowing that it's in there is one thing, but actually pulling it out is another thing. So for me, as a rugby coach and as a player, you put in those situations all the time where you want to pull that card out. And as a coach, luckily enough, I'm on the other side now where I'm actually willing and happily trying to put players in that position where they want to quit. And that's something that I find really, really challenging and enjoy. And what you want the players to do when they're in those situations is just to fight, is to find a way to continue to grow. What they want to do is they want to take the easy option. They want to go, right, I find this easy. There's a little out for me here and out for me there. I can make a big excuse or whatnot. But the situation that you put yourself in is to challenge yourself to be better. And just knowing that card's in your pocket is really good because you're going to use it occasionally. I know in my life, I certainly have used it, but you try and teach yourself and put yourself in those situations where you actually don't have to use it. And you want to put yourself in the environment where you want to test yourself. And that's what life's all about, putting yourself in those environments where you've got that card, but you just hang on to it. And as a rugby coach and a player, we talk about these guys and they're professionals, yeah? So we can control 30% of their lives. So when they come into the training area or into the playing arena, we've got them for about 30% of the time. 70% of the time, they're on their own. So we can't control that 70%. So what's important for us to do as coaches is to provide them with different tools to be able to cope when they're actually on their own. And you guys, you're on your own 100% of the time. You don't have people there driving you all the time. You've got to do it yourself. So that's where it becomes really important that you give yourself a few coping mechanisms to be able to do that. I know as a young player, I distinctly remember I was on a pre-season training camp and we were running up this hill, and we'd been doing training all day. And I basically said to myself as I was running up the hill, if we go over the peak of this hill, I'm done. I'm out. So I actually had my card out ready to go, my quit card. I had it out ready to go. Just as we approached the apex of the hill, the coach said, "Righto, turn around, boys, we're going back." So I actually put it back in my pocket, but I was getting to the point where I wanted to quit. I was in another training camp as a young guy, and we did a training camp at Holsworthy where we did a stretcher carry through this dry riverbed, and it went for about 8k. We had to carry this tire and whatnot, and we eventually got out, and we saw onto a football field, a big opening, and there was these 4 trucks that were army trucks that were parked about 400 metres away. So obviously we got this physical lift of being able to, okay, we're at the end of this now. Let's get there. Started running over. We're about 50 metres from the trucks, and then the lights started on the trucks, and then they drove off. That was nearly when the quit card came out for the second time. The ability as a coach to put you in those situations where you just want to quit, but you don't, that's the real skill of, I suppose, the programming that you guys are doing there at Code 5, but also the ability for you to push yourselves individually and go, you know what, I can actually do this. And you find yourself at the end of it being quite proud of yourself because you thought you were going to quit, but you didn't, and you hung in there. So there's lots of examples of that through what I do that I'm sure you guys have gone through around in terms of wanting to quit, but just hanging in there. And I suppose you think about the end goal of where you want to get to, and that's something that's really promising and actually inspiring on its own. And the reason why we want to push the players and the learnings that we want the individuals and the team to get are really quite individual. Everyone's individual in what drives them and what pushes them and what point they want to quit. But actually putting yourself in the scenario, in the arena to be able to do that, that's the first step. A lot of people don't actually do that. So when you don't want to get up and go to the gym or you're looking for that excuse, put it away. Just make that decision that you're going to get it done because you know the end result is you improving yourself. And funnily enough, from a sporting perspective, when you actually improve yourself in a team environment, you're actually improving the other people around you because I'm sure you've all trained with people where you're almost about to pull out the quit card and they're actually going okay. But also the other side of the coin is where you're doing it pretty good and you look to the side of you and someone's busted. They're like just about to pack it in and you actually provide them with a little bit of motivation to help them going. So I suppose multiply that significantly and you get that from a rugby perspective. And then obviously putting that on a global stage and the stakes of whatnot and in terms of a professional competition, it's highlighted even more. But the fundamentals are exactly the same. So what we're trying to do as coaches is constantly put you guys in positions where you're uncomfortable. You need to work as a team, but it's all about individual growth. If you grow as an individual, you're going to work with the person next to you and it's going to rub off. So I suppose in terms of identifying that situation where you're approaching where you're thinking about quitting, just hang in there and push on because you know that the positive side of it's going to come through the other side. As just in terms of summarising that point for me, there's a couple of little quotes here from like really different people in life. The Michael Jordan with the Last Dance documentary that's on at the moment on Netflix. That's taking a lot of airtime, and yeah, you can see from that documentary that guy was a really driven individual, and he got the best out of him. But he wasn't at his actual best until he realised how the other people around him needed him and how he could help them. So Conor McGregor, someone who the UFC is very popular. Now he's a loudmouth guy, but his work ethic and his ability to continue to fight and actually fail and continue to lose and come back is part of his nature. Winston Churchill, he needs no introduction, but someone who failed a lot, but actually identified the courageous side of it and how important it was. And J.K. Rowling, obviously someone who's been exceptionally successful just talking about failure and how you have to go through it and how it's important for growth. So that quit card, if you use it, it's not the end of the world. It's a matter of, okay, you've just made that point in time and gone, shit, that was pretty tough and I did, but you learn from those experiences. So, that's sort of the first thing I wanted to try and pass on to you guys. Secondly, was motivation in funny places. For me, obviously everyone's very different again around where they find motivation from different people and whatnot. The first person that I suppose I can talk about that inspires me is a guy called Perry Cross. He's one of my best mates. We went to school together. We played rugby together. He broke his neck his first year out of school playing rugby, and he's a quadriplegic, and he's full ventilated quadriplegic. Lives on the Gold Coast, and he's an amazing man. It took him a while to sort of find out his real purpose in life and what he wants to try and do, and he wants to find a cure for paralysis. He's driven to do that. He's very motivated to do that, and that's something that, he's said to me privately, that it's something that keeps him going and that he actually really strives for. It's what helps him get out of bed every day. So he's someone who is a very inspirational person to me for a personal reason, but also for the things that he's doing in his life and the way he goes about living his life. Never once whinges, never once complains, and he's got plenty to complain about. So Pez he'd be embarrassed on talking about him, but I love him, and he's someone who I get a bit of motivation from. Motivation for me at the moment is trying to become a better surfer. I'm a terrible surfer. I'm a longboarder and I want to get up the front like these two are in this photo here. It makes me very envious seeing these two perched on the nose here. But for me, it's something that I think from a motivation for me, it's something I can't do and I want to be able to do it. As simple as that. There's a lot of skill involved in it. There's a lot of technique in it. Like all things, when people do things really well, it looks really easy. So it's a matter of breaking down the process and trying to find a way to do it. But I tell you, if you're talking about failure, I could not tell you how many times I've tried to get up the front of the board and failed, but I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep going back. I'm going to keep getting out there. I'm very driven to try and achieve that because it's something that when I see it done, I think that looks really easy and I want people to see that. I want to be able to do that. It's a bit of a selfish thing, but I want to be able to do that and get a lot of confidence out of pushing myself to try and do that. So trying to find something in your life that, whether it's tennis, pole dancing, crosswords, Sudoku, something, improving yourself around that. Just challenge yourself and find yourself, give yourself that challenge to try and achieve it and make it for yourself. Like some people might see getting up the front of the surfboard is just ridiculous, but for me, it's something that I really want to try and do and I'm trying to get to. Some people in the training industry, these two are pretty well known around the world in the CrossFit world, and the motivation to try and emulate, I suppose, a couple of people of what they do, and they've both had their different stories and triumphs and challenges around trying to achieve their goals. Matty Fraser, broken back, addiction issues and whatnot, managed to find a way to become the fittest man on the planet. And Tia Claire, she's had a lot of problems around actually not quite achieving what she wanted to do and not quite getting there, but that persistence and not pulling out that quick card is something that I suppose she's achieved and being able to and be able to work towards. I remember when I started playing and I was just towards the end of my career, I had quite a bad knee injury and I saw the surgeon, and the surgeon sort of said to me, he said, look, you can do one of two things here. You can have surgery and you're going to miss 6 months of footy, but you'll be able to play with your kids when you're 25, when you're 30 and 40, into your 40s and 50s, or you can not have the surgery. You'll be able to play in a couple of weeks, but your knees are going to be shot. And you probably won't be able to run around with your kids when you're in your 50s. So I took the second option and the motivation to be able to move around and get around with my kids and play with them. My oldest is 15 and I've got an 8-year-old boy. So for me, again, that's something that the ability to run around with my kids, and that's something that motivates me. It's a very intrinsic motivation, and if I wasn't in that position, I could see that as something that would be a very driving, motivating factor for me. This is something that I find very interesting as well. Is just the picture of the mirror from on a number of different angles, I suppose. A lot of people think automatically, okay, what you see in the mirror is from a physical perspective is whether you're happy with that or whether you're not happy with that, and it can be seen like that. But I certainly look at the mirror and the reflection in it around whether I'm being the best version of myself, and I'm not comparing myself to anyone else other than me. So myself making the right decisions around what I want to do, how I want to prepare, how I want to father my kids, how I want to be a husband, how I want to train, how I want to coach. I use the mirror sort of analogy a lot around using it as a reflective piece where it's not so much whether what I'm looking at, it's who I'm looking at and the inside of the person that I'm looking at, and whether I'm happy or whether I'm sad with that. And again, that fluctuates for me. It fluctuates a lot. It's not always, you're not always happy what you're looking at. Certainly when I discipline my kids, I feel like shit. And I don't know whether I'm doing the right thing, and questioning that, and some of my decisions that you make, you're not sure whether you're doing the right thing. But if I can look in the mirror and be comfortable with the decisions that I've made and the way that I'm living my life, then I find that as something that's quite motivational for me. If you're a rugby player, a lot of people think that the motivations are these things, they're trophies. Yeah, it's, we've got the World Cup, the Rugby World Cup, the ultimate trophy there. The Super Rugby Trophy is a domestic competition that's run around the world. The Bledisloe Cup is a famous trophy between New Zealand and Australia. You've got now with rugby the Olympics, the Olympic rings. The Olympic gold medal is a reality for rugby players now, and it's something that's exceptionally motivational. Down the bottom here, you've got the club game in Sydney, the Shute Shield, which is a trophy that's very hardly fought for, and also the NRC trophy, which is a national sort of domestic comp. That there is a bit of a linkage between that and Super Rugby. So players sometimes feel as though that the motivation for them is to actually achieve the trophies. And as a coach, I've been lucky enough to get a few of those. But the real thing for me that motivates me is relationships and the people that you meet along the journey of what I've done and what I'm still doing at the moment, and also how you go about building those relationships. Sometimes they're very difficult, but sometimes they're very rewarding. But it's something that you have to put time into, and you've got to put time and effort into relationships. I've got relationships with players when I very first started coaching them that I still speak to. Been coaching for 12 years now. Guys who I still speak to, guys who have shared their most saddest moments with you, the loss of family members, and guys who you've shared moments where you've gone through absolute jubilation together, and you've been able to sort of share a moment in time that you can build over time. And those sort of things are the things that I find quite motivational, and strive to try and build those relationships with my players, as I'm sure a lot of the trainers have with you guys, but also you should do with one another. Actually going out of your way to say hello to someone that you don't usually do, or speak to someone and make a bit of an effort, that you go out of your way and build a relationship and see how they're going, because in terms of their motivation, it's going to be waning sometimes, so they might need a bit of a kick, and definitely you're going to be in that situation as well. So there are a couple of things. So I suppose in a brief summary around what I wanted to try and give you guys tonight was a bit of an insight into me, but also a couple of things around a daily routine, a daily challenge around making your bed. The second thing was about staying in the fight, around identifying those times when you want to pull out that quit card, but stick it back in your pocket and you have really good reasons for doing it. And then I suppose looking around you for different sorts of motivation, and everyone's different, and what traditionally might work for someone is going to be totally different for someone else. And I suppose I want to wish everyone luck with their journey throughout with Code 5 and what they're going on at the moment. It's certainly been very interesting, and I've found it very difficult from a training perspective. So no doubt ScoMo's opened up the groups of 10, so I can see Connor rubbing his hands together, getting ready to get everyone whipped back into shape again. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, I'll stop the share. Okay. Does anyone want to ask a question? If you can unmute yourself, if you want to ask a question, is that everyone cool with that?
Yeah, I had a question.
Connor.
In regards to motivation, and you say you find motivation from different places, I think a lot of our members will be motivated for maybe a short period of time, like a month, because they had an emotional incident happen where they've since joined Code 5 because something happened where they want to lose weight or they want to get fit and run that marathon or something.
Yeah.
And you've mentioned finding motivation in interesting spots. Would you say like weekly look for it, or is it just if you ever feel down, go out and find different ways? What are your sort of thoughts to try and be motivated like for a longer period of time so they can really achieve their goal?
Yeah, the one for me is the mirror analogy is something that I find that really works for me, because that's quite constant. The amount of times you are looking in the mirror is quite interesting. And if you use that little moment of reflection to try and go, okay, what am I actually doing here? What do I want to achieve by going to their Code 5 or putting themselves in that position? It's going to be very different for everyone else, for everyone. It might be a marathon in a year's time. I know with Jerome, everyone did their 12-month focus plan of what they wanted to do, and mine was that surfing. So I put that surfing on the time frame. It was the 21st of April next year that you're going to work towards. So everyone's going to be different around that. So if you have that set and that's something that you can work towards, then it's going to put you in a good place to start moving forward, I suppose. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. So just have something that you can sort of anchor towards and continue to work towards, and when you...
Yep, exactly. And it might be short term, it might be longer term. Once you achieve that shorter one, you might then set something that's a bit more of a stretch for you.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's going to be, way down in the future, because you might not get there. You might pull that card out.
Yeah.
Everyone's different, but
yeah.
No goal setting in terms of whether it's for this week or whether it's for next year should be seen as either good or bad. It's just challenging for the individual.
For sure. Love it.
Anyone else? Any questions? No. All good. No.
What about anything really inspirational from your career? Some moments with players or athletes that you think would be a very short, but or not too short, but a story that you could tell everyone about.
Yeah, and in terms of after 2014, the Waratahs were lucky enough to win the Super Rugby title, and the players had this is an interesting one because the players had a really big party. Clearly, they had a very big party, and I decided not to go. I was a relatively young coach, and I thought, I know the players, that's something for them to do, and they can go and have a big night together and whatnot. And one of the other assistant coaches actually went to the party, and it was one of those things that I really regretted not going to, because it was something that I really should have celebrated. But as a coach, I felt I was really more happy for the players to do it, but I actually should have celebrated it myself. So it was something that I was involved in that I didn't celebrate. So when we were able to win a few games with the Wallabies and win a few test matches, I certainly made sure that I did celebrate and did actually celebrate those times with not only with the other coaches, but also with the players, and sometimes show them a different side of yourself that they probably don't get to see. So that's a bit of a weird one, but it's important that you celebrate when you achieve something. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one of the codes at Code 5 is celebrate success because, I mean, we're human beings and we want to enjoy our lives as well and don't have to be so regimented that you got to discipline yourself all the time. So every success, make sure you celebrate in whatever way that is for you.
Yeah, definitely. No, you got to do that. You got to do that.
Awesome. Any other questions at all, guys? Or pop in the chat or you can say them out loud. Want to ask me about any Wallabies players in particular?
No. As long as there's no New Zealand supporters, that's fine.
I don't think
they're everywhere.
Cool.
They're everywhere. That's good.
All right. Awesome, cool. Mate. Well, this is recorded, so I'll post this up. Nathan, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, mate.
No worries. Thanks very much, everyone. Hopefully, as I said at the start, someone gets something out of what's gone on tonight or whatnot over the period of time. So, thanks for having me and thanks for taking the time to listen. I know it was always going to be tough going up against Lego Wars and Michael Jordan. So, but no, thanks for your time.
All right, legend. Thanks, mate. Have a good night.
Bye.